All right. Well, good afternoon. I'm Kathy Hallisey, and I'm a board member of the Encore Network. And again, we're thrilled to have you here and joining us today for this awesome webinar. For those of you who may not know, the Encore Network is a coalition of people, of leaders who champion the civic, social, and economic contributions of people 50 plus by creating community, stimulating learning, and inspiring action to transform the Encore stage of life. And we're so excited about this webinar and for you joining us today. Our focus today is on entrepreneurship, Encore entrepreneurship, perspectives, trends, and supports. I mean, it's incredible that the number of people over 50 who are starting businesses, joining their creative forces in this way, it's so phenomenal, and it's the largest group. So in this program, we'll learn about several initiatives that demonstrate promising approaches for women, men, older adults in entrepreneurship, and how we can leverage the experience to encourage this growth in people over 50 and really championing their skills, their time, their expertise to create economic value in our communities. Our program today will feature a discussion with some awesome panelists who I'm going to introduce in a few moments. They're phenomenal women who are going to share their insights. And we have some prepared questions and answers, but then we really want to hear from you. So please put your thoughts, your ideas, your questions in the chat. And we'll be monitoring it as we go to make sure that we cover those questions. But before I introduce the panel, just a few suggestions, kind of the housekeeping, shall we say. Don't forget to mute yourself so that you can hear everyone's remarks so that you can fully participate and you won't hear the dog barking in the background like might happen in my house. So I will be muting shortly. Again, use the chat to make sure that you put your questions, your thoughts, your concerns. We really, really want to hear from you. And finally, this event is being recorded. So you will get a copy of this via email later in the week. So stay tuned and you'll be able to go back in and hear and reflect on this information. So, wow, now I get to introduce our awesome panelists. So first, we have Nicole Liatos, who's the Senior Director of the Women's Business Centers of Ohio. She's also a co-founder of her own business and a key partner to the Encore Cleveland initiative. So she will provide insights on workforce and community and the program that she helps to champion locally in Cleveland, Ohio. We also have Dr. Mary J. Crone. She is a research professor at Boston College, and she serves as a faculty coordinator for the Woods Entrepreneurial Certificate, and for non-traditional students. She's a founder and a president of a company and author of Starting Up Smarter, Why Founders Over 50 Build Better Companies. So welcome, Mary and Nicole. And last but not least, we have Wendy Mayhew, who is the owner of Business Launch Solutions, host of Cross-Gen Founders podcast, which is promoting intergenerational business partnerships. And she's the author of Wiser, the definitive guide to starting a business after the age of 50. So together, these three awesome women are going to share their insights from the workforce perspective, the educational and mutual aid perspective, and the online and intergenerational perspective. So we're so thrilled that you're here, and we're going to kick off the panel with Nicole. Nicole.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Kathy. Excited to be here, and thank you to the Encore Network for creating this space. So today I'll talk to you a little bit about our program. So as Kathy said, Senior Director of the Women's Business Centers of Ohio, which is hosted by ECDI, which is the Economic and Community Development Institute, which is a micro lender for small businesses. So we help entrepreneurs start and grow, and we do that through training, access to capital, and one-on-one coaching. And so a part of the Women's Business Center is our Encore Digital Connect program, and that's really focusing on women 50 and older, and focusing on minority women who have little to no online presence. And we take them through an 8 to 9 week cohort So the cohort is very small. It's usually about 5 women in that cohort. And really what they're going to get from that is the basic understanding of branding, slogans and logo, how to create and manage their own website, graphic design, using software such as Canva, and then social media best practices. And really the goal of this program is to close the digital divide and technology gap while providing business development support to the entrepreneurs. And so in the next slide, we have a Barbara. She is one of our Encore members. And so here's just a short clip, and she sells quilts of how the program impacted her. I'm not sure if we have sound.
I think we're working on it, so hold on a moment.
Okay.
So no one can hear that?
No.
Okay. We may have to skip over it. It worked earlier.
That's okay.
Nicole, can you share a little bit about Barbara and her experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So she was in our last cohort. Barbara, she sells quilts and tells stories through quilts. And so she used to have a brick and mortar and she went to online. She didn't really know how to use Etsy, really develop her website. And so we were able to get her a professional looking website, take professional product shots, as well as headshots of her, and be able to develop the website. So now she's selling on Etsy, and she's actually expanded a focus of her business, which is teaching others quilting. So she does that in Cleveland Heights. So just a wraparound services that we provide, just a story of the wraparound services that we provide, where we're able to impact her business, take it from, essentially not selling to be able to sell her products online.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Maybe now we'll turn over to Mary to do a brief introduction, and then we'll come back to some questions.
Great, thank you.
Shall I just jump right in?
Yes, Mary, we'd love for you to give a little background about your work.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me, and hi, everyone. I am, as Kathy said, a professor at Boston College, and currently the coordinator of a new entrepreneurship certificate program at the Woods College division of BC, which is devoted to serving non-traditional students. And I wanted to share just a few things from my own personal entrepreneurship background with you to give a context. So in 1996, I was at Boston College, but I took a leave of absence to jump in for my very first co-founder startup team experience in the go days of the dot-com bubble, to join a venture capitalist founded company in Kendall Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And then in 2000, I co-founded a mobile software development company. And both of those companies actually did have venture capital and were more classic startups. And now I am the founder of more of a solopreneur business consulting company, where I try to do good things in the social enterprise space. So I will say that in all of my startup experiences, I really learned a ton by just jumping in, often not knowing what I was doing. But I learned mostly from making mistakes and then figuring things out. And so that's part of the context I bring in, having decided to continue to teach entrepreneurship in the academic context, that I think that there are so many tools and resources. Nicole's program is amazing. The Encore network programs that are available. There's a lot of ways you can learn about entrepreneurship and learn the specific skills that you might need to know to start a company, almost like just in time, when you need to know. And many of those resources are free. And studying entrepreneurship at a university is not free. So it's a big investment. Why would you make that investment? Why would you advise anyone you're working with to make that investment? Well, I think of it in the following way, and these are the round circles here, that really you're coming into an entrepreneurship course or a certificate program to get the space and the support and the resources you need to really explore and decide on how you want to become an entrepreneur. What is your purpose? Why do you want to start a company? What do you want to accomplish? And then once you understand that why, learn the skill sets that you're going to need to do what needs to be done at every level. So in the certificate program at BC, but this is just representative of most certificate programs around the country. I'd say the main difference in the program I coordinated is we really are geared up for older adults and non-traditional students and not just the undergraduate type of student. So I teach the kind of Entrepreneurship Foundations 101. And in that, we start with what is your why? What is your purpose? There's a lot of reflection and discovery activities. And we also teach about business planning and raising money, if that's the path you're on, but also working in a nonprofit or starting a nonprofit. We have a social entrepreneurship course. And we teach innovation and design and prototyping for entrepreneurs, as well as the business of sustainability and business planning. So I would say at the end of the day, what you're getting when you sign up for a university course or entrepreneurship certificate is you're getting that broad expanse of expertise. It's not just in time, it's a deep dive. You're going to be able to learn what you need to know before you jump into a business. And that way, we hope that students will avoid some of the typical mistakes of being a new founder, as well as come in better prepared to make the most of their entrepreneurship experience, knowing their purpose, really enjoying the journey that they're on. You also are getting mentorship, you're getting peer-to-peer support and collaboration. But I want to just end by saying we are one of many resources. And one reason I'm so happy to be at this program is to hopefully in the discussion share all the different kinds of resources that are available for entrepreneurs at every stage of their journey. So look forward to that discussion and questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for sharing from the educational perspective, and I really appreciate Nicole sharing some of the programs that might be free in the community around entrepreneurship. Now we're going to turn to just kind of have Wendy kick off from the intergenerational and perhaps online perspective. Wendy?
All right, it's good if you unmute yourself, right? So so I'm going to be talking about intergenerational businesses because they're really a good way for two groups to come together. And actually, what is an intergenerational business? It is bringing together two different age groups that have the same they have diverse skills and common goals. So I get asked this a lot. How do you go and find somebody to have a business with? And so what I'm going to do is just tell you a few short stories here of people that have started intergenerational businesses and how they found each other. So, and I love this first one here. Fluid Wear was started by Aidan and Ellie here in Ottawa. And Aidan is the young one, Ellie is the older one. Ellie is very well known in the area for his mentorship, for having successful businesses and whatnot. And so Aidan was at his graduation and Ellie was in the audience. And one of the professors up on the stage said, okay, now that you've graduated, go out and tell the world who you are. Go out into the audience and meet people. And so Aidan met Ellie, and lo and behold, they became business owners. And what their business was surveys, doing surveys, and they were very, very advanced with it. And they sold their business to a very, very large corporation. They were in business for a very short period of time, and somebody started looking for it, like asking them if they would sell their business. So that's a really good success story. They got along fabulously, which isn't always the case, but they still talk to each other at least 2 or 3 times a week. So that's one really good one that I'm telling you. And then there's Mindful Garden. Catherine Winkler's mother died from dementia, and she decided that she needed to do some type of online program. And actually, she switched it from working with dementia to delirium. And she has 2 co-founders, and she is the oldest, obviously. And then the other 2 she worked with previously, one of them in a company. And then also this was a family, friends family, that there was a younger person there. So the 3 of them work together and they get along fabulously. And I always ask these questions whenever I'm doing my podcasts with people. What do you do to make it work? And it is just listening to each other and working with each other. And, and how do you, if you have any issues with each other, how do you solve them? And they all work through them just because they've all been defined roles. And that's really, really important whenever you're starting an intergenerational business. You need to define the roles so you know exactly who is doing what. Another one started Sparrow Invest, and they're just getting going. I like their story because they're 2 young people that started. They've known each other for years and years and years. And they went to a small business organization looking for support, and they couldn't help them there, but they referred them to another support organization who is going to invest in them because they like their story so much. So they didn't have to go looking for funding right away. They are just going to be getting it. And by the way, the first 2 got funding. And then the other one, the last one I'm going to talk about is it's a small business here in Ottawa. It's a space for having events and whatnot. And Emil started the business. And then someone approached him that he knew if he could come into the company. And so he did do that. He had to go and find the funding himself, which he got. And then he paid back Emil and is now a co-founder. Unfortunately, COVID has affected everyone, especially in the events and, where there just wasn't anything going on. So Blair, who is the young co-founder, has had to go and find work and is not really participating too much in that company right now, but hopefully he'll get back to it at some point. So those are just some ideas of where you go and find them. But, if you aren't the type of that have the opportunities that these companies have had, I suggest people go to networking events. You ask introductions from someone, and people. Everybody talks about now succession planning, and there's a lack of succession planning. So to find a company that is looking for somebody to take over their business is another opportunity. So that's basically what I have to say about intergenerational business.
Thank you, Wendy. So I think now we're going to bring all the panelists together. And just to let you know, in reading the chats, we have people who are interested in entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur. We have people who want to help connect their clientele to resources. And there's also a number of people who are part of the age friendly, right? So just giving you a little snapshot of who's listening right now. And again, it will also share with those who are not able to join us. So the first question is I'm going to ask Nicole, and Wendy and Mary can also share your thoughts. But so entrepreneurship is not easy at any age, right? But and many people over 50 bring really significant advantages to starting a business. But there are challenges, and gaps in supports. So could you describe, Nicole, maybe from your perspective, the challenges and gaps you see and what you think is needed to respond to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. And just to level set, so, and I said this earlier, we really focus on the historically underserved entrepreneurs, and then we house the Women's Business Center, so focusing on women. So when we're talking about this lens is mostly going to come from like helping and supporting Black women. And so what are some of those challenges in entrepreneurship, and then for the older adults? So for us, we've been running the Encore program for about 5 to 6 years in partnership to the Cleveland Foundation, where we've helped over 100 women, access capital, be able to, get the digital support that they need, as well as the business development support. So some of the gaps that we see when working with the clients is the digital gap. So outside of COVID, and let me just level set this too. So before COVID, we had an Encore Entrepreneurship Initiative program, which is very similar, but it really focused on business development. So thinking about going through their business plan, getting them access to capital, learning about the different sources of funding. So just small business development. But then after COVID, we realized, or just during the height of COVID, we realized that folks really needed to have an online presence in order to keep their business running. And so we were able to create this program because of COVID, and we've continued the program since then. And so one of the things is technology. There's a technology gap in this demographic. And so, we were able to create this program thinking like we're going to get them an online presence. We're going to get them a website. We're going to get them headshots, branding, logo. But, we ran that first cohort and we realized like there is a technology gap where we have to go back to the basics, right? And so like learning how to use the different software, learning how to use the computer. So thinking about digital literacy. So I think that was a huge gap that we saw, but we were able to rework the program and really meet the entrepreneurs where they're at. And then another thing that we see is access to capital. So being able to access that funding. So when you think about it, there's some credit challenges that make it difficult to access traditional funding. And so we are a alternative funder, a micro lender by the SBA. We're actually the #1 micro lender in the country with the SBA. And so one of the things that we were able to provide was a Encore specific funding fund. And so that was in partnership with the Cleveland Foundation. So thank you, Kathy. And so we have money set aside for Encore age entrepreneurs, and that was able to help alleviate some of those barriers. I don't know if my Wendy, if you want to join in or anyone has to add to it.
Wendy or Mary, do you have some thoughts?
I'll hop in on the financing because there doesn't seem to be any available at all here in Canada. I recently had a conversation with somebody in the federal government asking them why they wouldn't support us. And he said, there's funding for everybody. All you have to do, we have got programs. We're not going to have a separate program for you. You just go and you get it. You can apply for them. I don't know of anyone that has done that. And, and even has applied and has said, yes, they've got the funding. So they just, there always seems to be something that just keeps them from getting it. As well, just recently, there's somebody in another province that wants to have a program for senior entrepreneurs. They will not fund it. They cannot get the funding at all. So it is, it's really difficult here in Canada to get any funding. So that is the biggest thing here. And it's, and I think the second thing that I find, and I think it's because I've been in business so long that I have a hard time grasping sometimes what others can't find out on their own. They don't know where to go to start. They don't know where to go. And, there was a story about a couple of years ago, I guess, about a father and son who had started their business, and they had developed this product that they claimed that somebody else had stolen it from them. Okay. And so I got in touch with them and I went, what's going on? Like, why didn't you go, I said, did you not go for any advice? And he said, no, where would I have gone? And I said, where he was. I said, there's a small business organization, a support organization right there. I had no idea that there's such a thing. So, we need to, at least here, start promoting it more and, for people to know where to go, because it's a big, big problem here.
And one thing just to add, Wendy, to that with they don't know where to go is we saw that our recruiting efforts, we had to change up our recruiting efforts. So our program was focusing on online. And so thinking about the different marketing strategies that we do, which is like, constant contact, we're, social media, where that's not where the entrepreneurs are at that age. It's like we have to go and print out hot cards, go to the libraries, print those out. So we had to really think about our recruiting strategies of how to get folks into this program. And so just thinking of creative ways of meeting the entrepreneurs where they're at, or, this demographic where they're at.
And it's so much.
Yeah, I would just say that
they don't know, right?
Mhm. And to underline what Nicole has said, yes, that meeting people where they are, and libraries are a terrific place, senior centers. So, one of the things I do, wearing another hat, is work with the city of Boston and Age Strong with programming at senior centers, not for entrepreneurship, in fact, for memoir writing. But, that's a very different venue. And I see there are some people here from some of the state and local agencies, and that's very powerful to have in-person sessions. And I think one of the things that I try to do from a university mutual aid perspective is offer resources of faculty and people who have graduated from the entrepreneurship certificate and course programs at BC to be speakers and to be out there in the community, as well as participating in the Encore networks and other groups. And yeah, person to person is so important for any age entrepreneur. And, to me, that's like a skill that we all need to burnish up post-pandemic and be ready to be out there face to face as much as possible. But I also think, just a reality check, most founders of any age are not going to get venture capital and are not going to get outside funding. It's a very small percentage of any startup that is venture funded. And it's always going to be friends and family, your own capital, or SBA or microloans. And so helping people understand how to get ready for a loan and when it's a good risk and when that risk is really not right for them. I think that's a big gap that, and when I've talked to, and this was another program I did with another group that Doug Dixon and I got started called Founders Over 55. And we had a program with speakers from the Small Business Administration and the micro loan community. And a lot of potential founders don't really understand about putting together not just a business plan, but a profit and loss statement and a financial projection plan. So financial literacy as well as digital literacy, I think, is a very important component of skill building before someone jumps in to start a new company.
I'll just like to add something to about the financing. If don't mean to interrupt you here, Mary, but so a few years ago, whenever I did the 50 over 50 awards, I arranged for a venture capital, a bank, a venture capital, and an angel investor to meet with anyone that wanted to meet with them. And I think there was about 20 of them that met with them. And following up with them after, yes, these financial institutions were willing to finance them. However, the winners did not like their terms. So that is something else that they need to take into effect. And as well, another thing that I want to say, whenever I said there aren't specific programs for entrepreneurs over the age of 50, There are, like Nicole, like anybody can go to your programs, right? And I think that it's really important that we don't necessarily have to have someone. Yes, there's always going to be a group that will not want to fit in with all young entrepreneurs or whatever. But I think that, you can really learn a lot from everybody whenever you have the mixed age group.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even in our program, so like you think about the 8 to 9 week cohort, that's specifically for the encore age entrepreneurs, but they also get access to the WBC membership for a year. So they have access to that intergenerational where they're learning from other entrepreneurs in the workshops, and then they have access to that technical assistance year round.
And do they take advantage of it? Do a lot of them take advantage of it? Yeah, good.
They do.
I think that's a really good point, Nicole, right? There's also the sense of community that you're building with the cohort, and then you're connecting them with a larger community as well to really help them guide them through their process. There was a question about funding, and so I'm going to ask Mary before we move off to the next question is, Pat is asking, how likely is grant funding for mission purpose startups from your perspective?
And I just put an answer in the chat, but not a really good answer, because what I said is we could have a separate program on that. Grant funding is like VC funding. It's statistically unlikely that you will get the grant. Just everyone has to start with that awareness. But it's a great avenue to pursue for certain types of organizations and ideas. The SBIR, the Small Business Research Innovation Program, does provide amazing amounts of funding without giving up any equity in your business. But it's a long cycle, and you have to be ready to resubmit after you get comments. And so I in one of my previous companies that I mentioned, I did get an SBIR grant, and it was like magic. Like it helped fund the company for 3 years. But getting it required a lot of intensive effort, and really you have to be ready to put that time in order to get a grant. So yeah, there's a training on how to get grants is a whole separate topic that we try to do some work on. If anyone is interested in that, let's talk about that later.
Sounds good. All right. So Mary, maybe building off of that, what is the most critical lesson that you have learned from your experience of working in this space?
Okay, well, humility is probably the most critical lesson that I personally have learned. Don't try to be the smart person who gives the smart advice. Listen, and learn from the people who you're working with. Lessons I would share for entrepreneurs. Well, that one, of course, listen is always a good one, but no matter what the age, really a drive to learn and a real clear purpose to solve a problem is what you need going in and to stay the course. And a lot of folks who think about starting a company think that it's about the technology or it's about the idea that they have, but it's really about the problem that they want to solve and working with other people to make that a reality. The company I mentioned when I first joined a company in 1996 as a startup, the founder said, "Over my dead body will this company fail." And when I first heard him say that, I thought, oh my God, I'm working with a crazy man. Like, should I really have joined this startup? But he meant it, and he kept that company going through 3 pivots and failures. And he was determined that the company would succeed. So that's the other experience that I try to share with people who think about starting a company. Be prepared to fail, and you have to be determined and resilient, and learn how to pivot. And that's something that I try to teach in my course, is the art of the pivot, which is like again, like most companies don't raise venture capital, but almost every startup does have to change their plan about how they're going to grow at some point in the business sooner or later. And understanding that going in and being determined to most companies that fail because the founders give up. Sometimes that's the smart thing to do, but sometimes stay in the course. There is a possibility for success. So those are a couple of things that I've learned from experience. I've also learned that what you started out saying, Kathy, that older founders tend to be more successful. They are more resilient. They do have more purpose and determination to keep going, and they are willing to learn from, as Wendy said, from younger people. And so they're open to learning from the whole world. Younger people are not so open to learning from older people. So they cut themselves off sometimes from really good resources that they could benefit from.
You're right. That's really a good point. It's one of the reasons why, right? Businesses begun by older adults have a 2 to 3 more likelihood of success, right? Because they have that expertise, that connection, and that listening.
Absolutely. And some humility to go along with it.
Yeah, that's true. So, Wendy or Nicole, did you have any other thoughts on that question, or should I go to my next one before we see what else?
I was just going to add to this, to what Mary has said there. It is true that, it is this pivoting. Everybody that I mentioned in my, these stories, they had all pivoted. You start, this is what you're going to do, but you end up switching. And that's just, I think, the nature of business. The only thing that I just want to add is that entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. And that's why I always say, get out there, find out what it's like before you invest in doing something that you are going to wish you had never done. So
can I just say, Wendy, and sorry, Nicole, I would change that up a little bit to say, being a founder is not for everyone. But entrepreneurship, if you think of it as a mindset, which is problem solving, creativity, and innovation, I think that is for everyone. And I think no matter what your path in life and work is, it's valuable to learn more about that kind of mindset to bring even to your personal life.
Absolutely.
And just to add to that, even our first workshop that the Encore participants go through is mindset of an entrepreneur. So one thing I would add to this is we always say we're not in the business to create business owners, that they have to want to be able to do that. And so we see it as a win if they go through our program and they're like, hey, you know what, this is not for me. Then we see that as a success of the program too, because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money that goes into starting your own business. And so we wouldn't want to put someone in a worse financial position. So that is just something that I wanted to add to it. And then another thing from the lens of building out a program, and something that we learned from the experience would be really meeting the entrepreneurs where they're at. So, one business owner just doesn't fit into one box. And so having an individual plan and roadmap for each of those businesses is important. And that's kind of our key foundation of our program, is really meeting those entrepreneurs where they're at.
Thank you. So we've been talking about pivoting. And so the big pivot was the pandemic, right? Had a huge impact. And Nicole, you talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to ask maybe Wendy, what have you seen during these pandemic years? And what are you anticipating for 2023 and beyond?
I have talked to so many people that have approached me at events that, yay, I got out to some events. But, they just talking to me and calling me and, emailing, whatever, is they have, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, they have no idea where to go to find the support to start a business. And yet, we have, and, I'm in Ottawa, so Ottawa based, and we have one of Canada's best known support systems here in West Ottawa. And they just, I guess I think this is because I've been in business so long that I know and I stay on top of things all the time. But they just don't know that they're even there, or even where to go to find information. That is scary. That to me, that, you know, that you, and I think this goes to the fact that, you know, if you're really, really interested and want to become an entrepreneur, business, or whatever we want to call them, a founder, then you will find that. You will have that determination to look for it. So it scares me a little bit about all these people that don't know where to go, but they're somehow going to start their business, and how is it going to turn out? That's what bothers me.
Okay. Nicole or Mary, your thoughts on what do you anticipate for 2023 and beyond?
Actually, I think it's a good time for people to think in terms of entrepreneurship, because we may miss out on having a recession, which is a good news. But I think business growth is slowing down, and clearly everybody knows a lot of large companies are doing layoffs. And one thing that I loved about being a founder and an entrepreneur is if there was bad news coming, I was always the first one to know, because it was my organization, and I was the first in line. That's a mindset too. I mean, but I do think that more people historically, statistically, start companies in economic downturns and go back to school to learn about the skills to start a company, or go to a program, Nicole, like yours, because it's an option that is more valuable during uncertain economic times. Mm-hmm. And so I think of us all as wanting to give people more options. And that is what these resources that we're presenting are good for. It's not for everyone. I agree with that too. But I think in 23 and beyond, the workforce in the United States and around the world are going to need more options. And starting a business is just one of them, but it's one that's worth considering for a lot of people, or joining as part of a startup team.
And I think that COVID actually, I know one person here in Canada that I wanted her to do an interview with someone, and she didn't want to do it because it was such a downturn because of COVID. She increased her sales. It was unbelievable. Like, she had doubled her sales since the beginning of COVID, and it's probably way past that now. But she was embarrassed to want to talk about that. And so I said to her, you should not be embarrassed about that. You, by telling everybody about your success during this, is going to give other people hope that they can move ahead during something like this. And she was just, and she did go onto the podcast and talk about it, but it was, we need more stories like that, right? Like that are just, because I mean, there has been this pandemic, certainly threw everybody a curveball in every way, shape, and form, but to have these success stories. And also with, so I did the 50 over 50 awards for 3 years. And I would say that at least 95% of those businesses are still in business.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing amazing things.
Paul, do you have any, I know you talked about the technical and the moving towards more online presence, but your thoughts for 2023?
Yeah, so one thing that we are piloting in the next year is we have a retail location. And so it's really, it's called Setup Shop, and there's about 7 different businesses in that location. And that's an opportunity for businesses to go into a retail location with low risk and be able to learn about their business. And so we have layered it with the Encore program to get Encore participants to pop up in those shops and see if like the retail space is an option for them, and to really learn about their business. So we are here, we are available, and in uncertain times in the economy, ECDI and WBC is going to be here to support these Encore members. Whether it's through just the Encore program specifically, or just some of our other services that we have, because we are a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs. So we have a lot of different services for them.
Okay.
Nicole, do you do it just in person, or do you have an online program as well?
Yeah, great question, Wendy. So we are a hybrid model. So we really get a temperature of the cohort and how comfortable they are coming into in-person versus hybrid. And so kind of getting a poll and a census of what they want to do, and then we'll go from there. But so this next cohort, I think it actually starts today. Is today the 15th?
Yes.
Yeah, so tonight is our first one of the year. It's our orientation, so that will be in person. So we'll gauge a little bit tonight of what's the comfortability of the Encore members.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure we cover some of the questions that have popped up in the chat, and feel free for others if you'd like to put them in. But Doug is saying there are challenges in connecting Encore entrepreneurs to resources, but also to each other for peer-to-peer support. Any thoughts about ways to build communities that can help people support each other?
I can take this maybe just because we do this organically in our cohort. So one of the first classes that they do is orientation, really getting to learn from one another. Hold on just a sec. I'm sorry. Did I freeze?
No, it's good.
Okay. And so it's really just being able to create a space, creating a safe space for entrepreneurs. I think that's really important, especially for this age group, because you want to foster an environment where they can learn, grow with each other. And so making sure that they feel comfortable. And just a testament of our Encore program is from 6 years ago, there are still some Encore entrepreneurs that are friends, and they do business together. And so I think building that relationship or creating that space for relationship is important. So we really do that with making sure that they're comfortable in their space.
I would thank you for asking that question. And it's so important, and there's so little, relatively speaking, available for older entrepreneurs. When you think about I had my research assistant count, and there are 1,300 entrepreneurship programs for undergraduates in the US. So when you think about how many programs there are dedicated to older entrepreneurs, a handful, right? So, and that peer-to-peer support and networking is so important. And I and Doug, I mentioned, our steering committee members and founded this group called Founders Over 55, which is national. And we grew during the pandemic because so many people, it started in Cambridge and it was in person, and that was really valuable. But after the pandemic, we ended up with hundreds of people coming to our Zoom meetings, and we're still trying to sort that out. In fact, and we're planning an event for April. Remind me, Doug, it's April 26th, am I right? And it's pitch to your peers, the non-competition pitch. So this is to get feedback in a supportive way from age peers and seasoned entrepreneurs who are over 50. And so we're trying. But we'd love to join up with all the other groups that are also doing great things. And maybe Encore Network, I already suggested this once last year at Encore Network, could be the hub of resources for entrepreneurs over 50, that everyone could come and find, local in-person meetings, like the great things that Nicole is doing, or Canada, or the Ageless Entrepreneurs, which is out of Pittsburgh, Founders 55. So there's a lot that's happening, and almost no one knows the scope of what's happening or how to get hold of the resources that they want. So another pitch to the Encore Network to take this on.
Yes, and we encourage people to join our network because we have an awesome resources page. So, and we can talk about that. I do see in a few minutes, but there is another question around, from your experience, is there a typical Encore entrepreneur profile? Or...
No, I go with what Nicole said. Everyone is different, and programs need to be aware of that. From the very first, I'm just thinking about a business for the first time in my life, to I've started 3 other companies, and now I want to do one that really solves an important world problem. It's all the whole spectrum.
All right. And there was another question around, are there particular resources that you need, or are there special efforts needed to reach people who are outside the mainstream and less likely to know about these things? Your thoughts about how to do that? Or
do your research, who you want to talk to, find out their email, or pick up the phone and just reach out to them. Do it through LinkedIn, do it through Twitter, do it through whatever networks you have. And just don't be afraid, and don't be worried if they don't get back to you right away. Wait a little while, try again. I say, and third time, try again, and maybe then you'll know for sure. But if they don't respond right away, do try and keep in touch with them, or try not keep in touch with them, but keep connecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to add, Wendy, when I think about programs, I think it's very entrepreneurial-like as well when you're building those programs. And so, like, you are developing, like, who is your target audience? You are doing research about that, and then what are the best ways to connect with those different target audiences? So I always think about it that way. Is like, even though we are putting on a entrepreneurship program, we are very entrepreneurial like ourselves.
I think another thing, just to add to that. So, a lot of people, whenever you're looking at entrepreneurship and you're being introduced to it and you're on, say, LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot, so I mention that. But, we talk about all these influencers and all. I don't. People think that they might need to reach out to influencers and experts. You probably have a better chance of connecting with somebody that is not dubbed as being an expert or whatever, that they're big titles, because they are probably never ever going to get back to you, and you're lucky if you are. I know there's one person on LinkedIn, and she posts all the time, and she has thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, but she never responds to anyone. She just posts and walks away. And so you don't really want to try and get in touch with somebody like that, because they're not going to have anything to do with you, probably.
so it's really the power of the relationship and connecting and
Exactly.
and working together. So we are at 5:01, and we have committed to an hour and making sure everyone gets back to their other activities. So first of all, I want to say thank you to the panelists for this awesome discussion. I want to encourage everyone to look in the chat, because I saw that people put resources in, libraries, some other websites around how you might support the entrepreneur in your community. There is a poll. We would love your feedback around if this was worthwhile, because we really want to make sure that we are providing programs that benefit our members and the community. So if you are not a member, I'm going to put in a plug. Please go to our website and join. We have a phenomenal program coming up March 15th on artificial intelligence. And it's free to members. There is a cost if you are not a member. So a reason why you should join and become a part of this fabulous network. So thank you. We look forward to connecting with all of you. Thank you, Wendy, Nicole, and Mary. And if you have questions or thoughts, please feel free to reach out to us at the Encore Network. I'm Kathy Hallisey, and just thank you again for this awesome webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.
You
Thank you,
too.
Wendy. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Mary. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Kathy. It was great.
Was